like food. I like really good food. I like a wide variety of things. And some of my favorite foods are fruits and vegetables. Like what I have in this basket. Did you know that everything in this basket requires pollination in order to exist? In fact, according to the National Resource Defense Council, 30% of all of our crops require pollination. To put that into financial terms, that's $15 billion per year worth of crops that require pollination. And what is the primary pollinator of all of these crops? In case you don't already know, let me give you a little hint. Another of my favorite foods is honey. That's right, the honeybee is the primary pollinator of all of these crops. You've probably seen them out doing their work if you've been outside on a warm day, moving from flower to flower, pollinating and working away. But have you noticed in the last few years that there are fewer and fewer bees around? If you didn't already know, the bees are in trouble. It's in the news and the media. There's headlines all over the place with titles like "The Vanishing Honeybee" or "Declining Bee Populations Pose a Threat to Global Agriculture," or "The Bees in Decline," or "Here's Why All the Bees Are Dying." It's not perfectly clear what is causing the bees to die or disappear, but it is clear that bees are under pressure from a lot of different directions, and they definitely need our help. In my own bee yard last year, I lost 50% of my bee colonies. Another beekeeper that I spoke with claimed that he lost 80% of his bee colonies. When I contacted somebody from the Southern Oregon Beekeeping Association, they told me that 60% of the colonies disappeared last year in Southern Oregon. Bees need intervention. I'm going to talk to you about 3 different ways that humans can help the honeybee. The first way is by improving environmental factors. I'm not talking about massive changes that require government or law change or a huge change in lifestyle or stop using fossil fuels or anything like that. I'm talking about little changes that an individual can affect. Things that are simple, like don't use pesticides on your plants, especially not nicotine-based pesticides, which are extremely harmful to bees. Or another environmental thing that can be done is to plant more bee-friendly flowers, plants, trees, shrubs, and vegetables. Summer flowering trees are especially effective because they're huge and have millions of blossoms in a relatively small space. A shrub is kind of like a miniature tree and can be planted even in a small yard. If you plant vegetables, not only will it help the bees, but you get a nice snack at harvest time. Flowers, a pollination mix, you can pick up a package of seeds for less than $2. You can plant those in the spring, early in the spring, just by scattering them on the ground. Most of these things can be planted in pots on your patio or porch if you don't have a yard of your own. Another way that you can affect the environment for bees is with a water feature, a small fountain or a bird bath or something in your yard. Bees need water all the time, and especially on a hot day when they're out working hard to harvest the nectar and bring it back to the hive, they need to stop and get a drink and cool off. And the closer the water is to them, the easier that is for them. You remove a lot of stress on the bees by providing some easily accessed water. The second way that humans can help bees is by getting involved directly. Now, anybody can do this, and I know that there's a lot of different comfort levels for bees. Most people, or many people, are afraid of bees, or maybe more accurately, they're afraid of being stung by bees. But anybody could call a beekeeper when they see a swarm or know where bees have moved into an attic or shed. We call this a feral colony. The biggest advantage of saving that type of a colony of bees is not that that colony survives, but because nature may have already tested and tried those bees, they may be a more hardy variety, and we get to reintroduce their genetics back into the commercial beekeeping system by calling a beekeeper and having them come collect those. If you're a little bit more adventurous, you can get more active in this process, and you can pick up a small bait hive, something like this. A bait hive has a couple of frames in it with some comb, some beeswax, and then in the spring you put a lure in there. And if there's a swarm of bees in the area, they can smell that and they will hopefully come and move right into that bait hive. Then, again, you can call the beekeeper and provide those bees to a beekeeper. Or, if you're just a little bit more adventurous yet, you can use that to start your own beekeeping hobby. And anybody can have a beekeeping hobby. There's different rules and regulations in different cities. And to become familiar with those and everything else that it takes to become a beekeeper, you can contact or join a local beekeeping association. Beekeeping can even be done on the balcony or the porch of an apartment building with a small hive. The third way to help the bees is the easiest of all. And you're actually doing it right now, and that's to become more informed about what's going on with the bees. When you see an article in a magazine or a newspaper, stop and take a minute and read that article. You can also join a beekeeping association, like what I mentioned before, in order to learn more about what's happening to the local bees in your area, which things are affecting them the most, where are they struggling, things that you might be able to do and help with that. And then the most important thing is, as you learn, you need to share what you learn with friends, family, and neighbors. I want you to take just a minute, and I want you to imagine a world without bees. A world where apples, pears, and oranges are rare, or where carrots, cucumbers, and cauliflower are uncommon, or where berries or avocados are a novelty. I want you to imagine a peanut butter and honey sandwich without the honey, or sitting down to have a nice piece of cornbread with honey butter on it, only you only get butter on it. I want you to imagine a world where when you go to get an almond joy, there's no almonds in it. Bees provide so many wonderful things that the idea of a world without them is just awful. Now, I want you to imagine a world where you do something about it, where you install a water feature or plant some wildflowers. A world where you put a bait hive out and provide a swarm of bees to a local beekeeper. A world where you share the information you're learning now, or the information you learn later, with your friends and neighbors to improve the situation around the world. If you'll take a few minutes after listening to my message about the plight of the humble bee and make a decision to do something about the environment for the bees, to do something about helping the bees directly, or to inform somebody else with the information that you're actively seeking out and learning. If you'll take a minute and make that decision now, you'll find that in the next few weeks or months, when the opportunity comes, you're far more likely to take the actions necessary. I thank you on behalf of the humble bee who obviously can't.